what is the ketogenic diet, in case anyone doesn't know. And essentially, to make it really simple, it's just a diet that tries to eliminate carbohydrates as much as possible. Carbs as low as possible. Usually they say less than about 20 or 30 grams of carbohydrates a day. And just for reference, the average American is eating anywhere from probably 150 up to 300 or more, in some instances, grams of carbohydrates a day. So to reduce that down to 20 or 30, getting as close to zero is a pretty big change for a lot of people. It's different than the way that most of us eat in modern society.
I'm actually surprised at that number. I thought it would actually be a lot higher. I thought the average American was eating more like 400.
Actually, yeah, I was going to say 300. I'm thinking more of myself. On my high carb days, I eat like 150 or 200 grams on a higher carb day. But even that would be considered a low carb day for most people. Yeah, I think you're right. Most likely, I haven't looked this up, so I don't have a number for me, but I would estimate that the average is probably eating around 300 to 400. I think you're right with that. And I know plenty of people who eat 500 or 600 grams a day. If you follow the old food pyramid, the base of the food pyramid was, get 8 to 11 servings of grains and cereal and pasta and muffins and bagels.
Yeah, all the good stuff, right?
Yeah. So the ketogenic diet is almost the inverse of the food pyramid. We're just going to tip it upside down and get rid of that, that carbohydrate portion there.
Is joint pain or stiffness affecting your quality of life? I personally suffered from knee and lower back pain from my training and hobbies. Since I started taking a scoop of NativePath's collagen every day, I noticed a significant improvement in my joint health. I am able to do more things I enjoy with those I love and care about. I personally recommend everyone try NativePath's collagen for joint recovery and for a variety of other health benefits. NativePath has generously offered all of our listeners 15% off by simply entering the code AISA15 at checkout. That's code AISA15 for 15% off your entire purchase. All of NativePath's products are high purity, organic, grass-fed, and clean. So check out all of the great products they have available at their website, nativepath.com.
Keto is because when you're consuming only fat for energy, a lot of that fat is going to end up turning into something called ketones as a byproduct. Your liver is going to convert some of those fats into ketones, which have a lot of benefits, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little while. But ketones can also be used for energy. They can be used by pretty much all cells of your body for energy, and they have anti-inflammatory properties among some other things. But so essentially, we're going on a next to zero carb diet. We're getting all of our energy from fats, and some of those fats are going to become ketones, which are also going to supply energy and do other good things in the body. Sound about right to you? Is that how you characterize it?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I think the only thing that I would add would be that, when you said like the calories mainly come from fat, I would say that, the typical diet or the typical split in macros would be something like 70 to 75% of your calories from fat, about 20 to 25% from protein, and then roughly around 5% for most individuals for carbohydrates, as like a good rule of thumb. And I think people have a misconception with that because they confuse it with the Atkins diet.
Yep.
And so a lot of people think, oh, it's just as long as I eat enough protein and fat, then I'm good to go. But I think some people tend to go into the ketogenic diet and eat too much protein.
Yeah. So that is one of the things that can stall a ketogenic diet, because protein can, one of the benefits, we'll get into this later, but one of the reasons that people do a ketogenic diet is to keep their insulin levels low, and protein can raise insulin levels a little bit. So typically, if you're really going for the therapeutic benefits of ketosis, which is the state you get into in a ketogenic diet, then you do want to keep your protein a little more moderate. So whereas I eat maybe 150 grams of protein a day, someone on a ketogenic diet might reduce that to 80 grams of protein a day and get the rest of their calories from fat. Yep. And for people who don't like, some people like doing the percentages thing, like you said, maybe 20% from protein, 80% from fat. If people don't like doing the percentages and kind of, partitioning out their meal plan like that, then they can just simply say, okay, I'm going to target, let's say 70 or 80 grams of protein in a day, and then just get the rest of my calories from fat. And if you do that, then you're probably on a ketogenic diet.
At least pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So why is the ketogenic so popular? And, what are people using it for? And like I said, it's the most Googled and searched diet right now. And it's a really hot topic. If you go into a bookstore, there's 300 books on how to eat keto.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. Do you want to kick us off here? Like, what are some of the things that people are using it for?
Well, I think the primary reason is for fat loss.
That's definitely number one. Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of things that happen with keto is initially you'll lose a lot of water weight because
Yeah.
carbohydrates can actually, absorb a lot more water than fat or, protein. So in the beginning, you can lose 5 to 10 pounds pretty quick.
Pretty much in the first day or two.
Yeah, just from switching to a ketogenic diet.
Yeah.
But then I don't know. So there's I don't know what we're going to get into, but I looked into a lot of studies, and I mean, a lot of them were like, over a long period of time, let's say 6 months, you can see anywhere like between that and a high carb type diet, there was about a 5-pound increase, I should say a 5-pound weight loss for keto over a high carb type diet.
Yeah. And I tried to look at a lot of studies too prior to this because I wanted to have some exact numbers, but it's pretty impossible to find because maybe this study showed that there was 10% more fat reduction on a keto diet versus on a carb diet. And this one showed, the people on the keto diet lost 5 pounds more weight. And this one showed they lost 10 pounds more weight. So it's kind of all over the place, but the general theme is ketogenic diets tend to result in more fat loss than most other diets do. The typical just continue eating the way that you did, but cut your calories a little bit, which is what people usually try to do. Sometimes that can be successful for people, but typically ketogenic diets seem to result in more fat loss.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of the times like fat and protein is more satiating.
I think that's one of the biggest benefits. Yeah.
So I think that can really help with suppressing appetite, obviously. And then another good benefit is that you don't really feel sluggish. You don't have like the crashes from sugar highs.
Yep.
So that's another big benefit.
Another big one, anti-cancer. There's a lot of research going on right now. In fact, I just finished a really good book. It was called The Cancer Code by Jason Fung. Which is phenomenal, and talked all about current research that's being done right now on ketogenic diets as a treatment for cancer, or a lot of people are actually using them in conjunction with their regular cancer therapy. So they might still be getting radiation and chemo and that kind of stuff. Seeing improved outcomes if they can get those people to switch to a ketogenic diet also. That's, cancer cells prefer sugar for fuel.
Right.
They don't fuel very well off of ketones. Some of them do, but not very many. Some of them can't use ketones at all. And they can't use fat very efficiently either. So when you're on a ketogenic diet, you're not giving your body any sugar or carbohydrates, which means you're not giving the cancer cells the fuel that they want to proliferate and grow and spread. But you are giving the rest of your body all the energy that it needs from fat and from ketones, allowing the rest of your body to function and grow and do all the things it needs to do. So I thought that was incredibly cool. I can't wait until more research comes out on that. I think they're even looking at using exogenous ketones, like actually, like a drink that would contain ketone molecules that they can use to possibly fight cancer as well. A lot of stuff going into that.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I saw a little bit about it, and it said like a lot of the things I saw said it may cure cancers or may help fight certain types of cancers. Like you were saying, it doesn't work for every type of cancer.
Right.
But yeah, there were definitely some that they saw some benefits, and there still needed to be more studies done to prove it. But yeah, I mean, that's great. Anything that we can find that can really help with something like that would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess the last major benefit that I would touch on would be the cardiovascular health. High insulin levels and high blood sugar levels being part of the root cause of cardiovascular disease. Insulin and blood sugar are damaging and inflammatory to the arteries. And once you start to damage your arteries, that's when the body starts to build up plaques, and then you get hardening of the arteries, and the whole process of heart disease gets underway. So if we not damage our arteries, that's going to essentially prevent heart disease, because it won't get that whole ball rolling. And when you're not taking sugar and you're keeping your insulin levels low, you're really reducing the major contributors to endothelial damage, arterial damage. And on top of that, like I already said, ketones are pretty much shown to be the best possible fuel source for the heart, for cardiac cells. So the heart does incredibly well on a ketogenic diet, and it's not getting damaged the way that it would on a high carb diet. And on top of that, the ketogenic diet improves blood lipids in most people. So, when they're assessing your risk of heart disease, they're usually looking at your cholesterol levels, your triglyceride levels, and your ratios of those different things. Ketogenic diets typically will boost your HDL, good cholesterol, and they'll lower your triglycerides, which are the two biggest components of your blood lipids, as far as like predictors of heart disease.
Yeah, I would say if you eat kind of like a clean keto diet, it would. So I hope we go into like keto friendly foods and what people should be eating on a keto diet versus, what some people think they can eat on a ketogenic diet.
Yeah. So, well, maybe that's a good place to go next, because those were the benefits of the ketogenic diet. And those are like, so now we know the main reasons that people are searching it out. We know the benefits that people are trying to get from it, depending on who you are. So maybe we could talk a little bit about how to do keto the right way. Because, I like how you started off this talk mentioning Atkins. Atkins was pretty much where mainstream ketogenic dieting kind of started. He didn't call it that, but that's pretty close to what it was. That was like in the 90s or so. I remember Atkins was really big back then, 80s and 90s.
Yeah, I do. I remember that whenever I was younger.
Yeah. So, but the big difference between what Atkins promoted back then and what we would promote now is he did say, keep your carbohydrates as low as possible for a lot of the reasons that we talked about, fuel off of fat primarily and get adequate protein, all the same stuff we talked about. But Atkins never really discriminated between healthy fats and unhealthy fats or the quality of the food that you're eating. So back then there were people doing the Atkins diet and they were eating, tubs of margarine, and they were, using vegetable oil in all their cooking. And, it was all these sources of fat that we would absolutely tell people to avoid nowadays, whether you're doing a ketogenic diet or not. Yeah. And I think a lot of that is just that we've learned a lot in the last 30 years about which fats are good for you and which ones are not. The USDA and the American Heart Association would have told us back in the 90s not to eat eggs or to get rid of your butter and replace it with margarine and all that kind of stuff. And obviously a lot of that has been completely overturned since then.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can still have like, one thing that I kind of would say that you should have or shouldn't have so much is I see a lot of people always eating like a ton of like eggs and bacon and like tons of bacon. Like I don't mind eggs. Eggs are fine. I eat tons of eggs a day myself.
Me too. Yeah.
So,
5 or 6 at a time.
Yeah. So I'm not huge, I'm not going to knock eggs, but like whenever people go on a ketogenic diet and they're like, oh man, I can eat all the bacon I want, or I could just have like all the butter and all this stuff. And it's like, you can have it in little bits, but it's good to get some, natural fats as well from like, let's say macadamia nuts or from like, olive oil or from avocados. You can get fat from avocados, which is really great. I know they're a little high in carbs, so you have to watch that on a ketogenic diet, but things along those lines versus just, guzzling down like gallons of milk a day or all those things.
Yeah, that leads me into a good tip that I would have forgotten to mention. You talked about like guzzling down fats on a ketogenic diet. Sometimes people go on a ketogenic diet and they eat as much as they want. Like, okay, it's going to be only fat and, my target of protein, but I can have as much of that as I want. And that is true. You're still on a ketogenic diet if you do that, and you will get a lot of the benefits of the keto diet, like let's say the brain health, the heart health, low insulin, that kind of stuff. But if you're one of the people, and I would say that 98% of people who search the ketogenic diet want to lose weight, that's their main reason for doing it. if you're putting fat in, if you're doing the ketogenic diet because you want to burn off your stored body fat, your love handles, your gut, whatever, your body isn't going to tap into your stored energy if you're just putting a whole bunch of fat in your mouth. So, you do have to kind of watch the amount of food that you're eating. If you're the person who eats 2,000 calories a day, and that's like the right amount for you to kind of maintain your weight, then maybe when you go on the ketogenic diet, you're going to reduce that to 1,800 calories a day, and your body can fuel off of the fat that you're eating. But then that little calorie deficit will also allow your body to eat and start to consume some of your stored body fat. If people who's like, I'm on a ketogenic diet, I'm eating a pound of bacon and, a stick of butter, and I'm putting, a stick of butter in my coffee, and I'm guzzling olive oil, and you're just like consuming a ton of fat, and you end up eating 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day worth of fat, even if they're healthy fats. It's a healthy diet in terms of the food that you're putting in your body, but you're never going to get to your stored body fat if you're taking too much food.
Right. Just with any diet, you still have to be in at least a slight calorie deficit.
Yeah.
In order to see really any fat burning benefits.
Sure. Yeah. Your body fat is stored energy, and it's there for your body to tap into when you run out of energy that you're consuming.